and the anxiety rises for Team Patriot as we wonder if the jury in Virginia and Judge Ellis have any respect for the rule of law. Dyze in your house.
When I used to joke about rising fascism in America and the fall of democracy, I really thought I was being, like, over the top.
Staten Island niggas still puffing dust blunts. Representing Staten Island.
I mean, like, all kidding aside, I'm a high school dropout. I never thought the words autocracy and kleptocracy would be in my vernacular. I just never thought that that would be a thing.
Staten Island niggas still puffing dust blunts.
It's very, very difficult and frustrating to have progressive ideology living on Staten Island, or as I call it, North Texas. Example, your weed dealer pulls away and he's got a Trump Pence hat sitting on his back windshield. This is real life.
Representing Staten Island. Staten Island niggas still puffing dust blunts.
The most important thing you can do for me listening to this podcast is to not get sidetracked with distractions and nonsense. There is a person occupying the Oval Office who has committed crimes every single day of his life. And the only way to combat this is not to look at polls, it's to go vote in November.
Staten Island niggas still puffing dust blunts. Representing Staten Island.
Want to hear a little story about some of those people who are going to be voting in November? I'll tell you. People that value guns over children. People who think the South will rise again. People that think ending slavery was a failed experiment. White nationalists.
Representing Staten Island. Staten Island niggas still puffing dust blunts.
Be a part of ending the rise of fascism and the fall of democracy in America by keeping it locked to East Coast Radio, Dyze in your house, and hit the polls in November.
Representing Staten Island.
Hey, yo. Who's in the house? Dyze in your house. What is the word, peeps? What goes on? It is Friday morning, and we are back with another action-packed edition of Dyze in your house. This is the pre-show, the post-show, the prelude to the long-form J Porks podcast every Monday, where we tackle long strands of corruption. We pull that one string on that sweater of corruption, and we just keep pulling until we find out what exactly is happening underneath the hood. So we had a Wednesday episode of Dyze in Your House this week, a wacky Wednesday edition, right here on East Coast Radio for the least heard voices. And what you can do, if you want to become a East Coast Radiohead, is you can go to patreon.com/JPorks. You can pledge, you can become a East Coast Radiohead, check out the tiers we have, and there's, different things that you can get if you were to join the East Coast Radio family and help contribute to the podcast, contribute ideas. You get some exclusive content, bonus content, bonus content, exclusive personalized artwork, behind the scenes, videos of how, the process in which recording happens. It's a lot of stuff you can get. So if you go to patreon.com/JPorks and check out the Least Coast Radio Patreon page, you can let me know, what's kosher and what's not. And I can change things. I can move things around, so let me know. Alright. So, as you know, what Dyze in Your House serves for is to take one story that would probably take up around 15 to 20 minutes on the J Porks podcast and take it out of that and bring it to you here just so we can be a little more concise, a little more... I don't want to give you 6 different topics a week on the J Porks podcast. And I understand that and you might hear any rumblings outside is not poor audio quality. It is my windows getting power washed outside my house. So I don't want people to think that I'm not very techie. But that sound right now is not a torrential rainstorm. And it is not fuzz on my microphone. They are power washing my house. But it is 9 a.m. and I had to record this podcast because this podcast needs to go out before the jury comes back. And I'm going to tell you why. Because I am sick and tired. Man, I'm sick and tired of recording podcasts and being usurped by the news cycle 5 hours later and the podcast being nothing. So this is before the jury. This is 9 a.m. Friday morning. This probably will get live on the internet. This will probably get everywhere you like your podcasts in about an hour. So maybe 10 o'clock Eastern Standard Time. The jury will be deliberating again in the Manafort trial today. They asked 4 questions. So yesterday, we're sitting around waiting for the Manafort verdict. And then tweets are going, the jury is back. The verdict is in. Well, the verdict was not in. What had happened was, and this is fairly common in court proceedings, fairly common is that the jury will have questions and they will need some clarification on things. So they wanted clarification on what shell companies are. Something that scares me is they wanted the redefinition. They wanted Judge Ellis to redefine reasonable doubt. So, there's one guy in there that's like, well, I'm not budging. So, I don't know what's up with the jury. I don't know what's up with the judge. But here's the thing. And Greg Oliar pointed this out on Twitter earlier this week. And he said, no insider knowledge. But Paul Manafort is the first in many dominoes that is going to fall. Now, Jay, you may ask yourself, Jay, what in case I set up all these dominoes and I never knock down the first one? What happens? Well, what happens is we say goodbye to our country. That's what happens. Because if the rule of law can't prevail, then, I don't know what... If this country is not founded on anything, it's founded on laws. And the days are done for rich white people to walk away from crimes they committed because they had money. And I don't care what Rick Gates did. Paul Manafort was the leader of that operation. Rick Gates was Paul Manafort's deputy. If I worked for a criminal, I would try to be a criminal too. Secretly, besides being a criminal with that criminal. You know what I'm saying? The star witness is the document in this case. The jury not being back after a half hour is just crazy. Now, I understand due process, yada, yada, yada. These guys really need to review all these documents. Every single tax form. There's 18 counts here. How long are the American people gonna sit here and wait to see if the rule of law is a thing that matters anymore? If anything matters anymore. Let me tell you a little story. In September, I was Still collecting unemployment from the summer. September 2017. The first week I went to work was a 3-day work week. But the student I work with was out one of those days. Therefore, I only worked 2 days. I only paid 2 days. I only got paid for 2 days. It's not like I got paid for that third day. I filed unemployment for that week because I had not returned to work full time. Right? Now, nobody sent me to jail. But because there was one day, that extra day was a day I was, air quotes, ready and willing to work. But I didn't. They said that I had no right to collect on that week. Cool. Cool story, bro. Won't happen again. That's not how it works. It's not won't happen again. Okay, cool. It's okay. We need to remedy this situation. And how do you think they did that? Do you think they docked me the one day that I worked? Do you think they docked me a total of 1 week unemployment? No. They docked me 16 days. That is the equivalent, because unemployment, they give you 4 days a week. That is the equivalent to an entire month of being penalized for accidentally filling out a form incorrectly, which, by the way, wasn't even filled out incorrectly. What had happened is that I did not know, underscore that I did not know portion of it, I did not know that if there is a available substitute case in a school in Westchester, and I get that email at 6:47 in the morning, I didn't know that I was supposed to be in Westchester by 8 o'clock, or I don't get unemployment. I did not know that. Now I do. I'm entitled to a hearing. Did I go to my hearing? Did I request this hearing? No, because ignorance is not a defense of the law. I can't go there and say, oh, I didn't know. Paul Manafort has forms multiple times. Do you have any foreign bank accounts? And they're asking the jury, one of the other questions was, well, does the foreign bank account count as being his bank account if he owns less than 50% of its stake? Do you people know how money laundering works? Listen, this jury, you guys don't need documents. All you guys need is a freaking computer and look up what money go to a dictionary. You can't use a computer because then you'll be able to research the case. Go to a dictionary, look up money laundering. It's a very complicated process that usually involves people trying to look like they are hands off, which would mean people looking like they're less than 50% controllers of a shell company that they are actually 100% controllers of. You got Paul Manafort is rich. He's rich, and then he's not reporting. He's not reporting how rich he is, and then he goes broke, and he's not reporting how broke he is. This guy is lying on both ends of the spectrum to defraud banks. Also promised, I know I'm talking about a lot of things I talked about Wednesday, but honestly, I really thought the jury would be back by now. I didn't think that Paul Manafort would need people to go fine tooth and comb through his tax forms. The guy is a criminal. He's a thug. He needs to be thrown in jail for the rest of his life. He's over there staring down jurors, staring down gates. He ain't flipping because he's a real mobster, like. He's real Russian mafia. Like, you joking? And you guys are gonna let this guy walk? How can anybody listen to the behavior, listen to the spending, listen to the way, the lies that were told, and including that, and in addition to all that, just keep in the back of your mind that one of those jobs was consulting in the Ukraine for a pro-Putin politician who ended up exiled from the Ukraine to Moscow. This is not normal. It's not normal. It's never going to be normal until we fix our country. And you know what? We have a lot of work to do. We have a lot of work to do. And I understand that this jury could come back and they can find him guilty on half of these charges, and he'll still go to jail for the rest of his life. But the anxiety is fueling Pfizer to open up a new factory right now to make more Valium and Xanax. I mean, really. This is just insane. Why? I mean, I would say, why is this even going to a jury? Because it's a paper case? Why do you need to show intent? They're forms. You know? Why doesn't this go to the judge? Not this judge. This judge is whacked. Both sides, prosecution and the defense, both have a case for a mistrial. Not for a mistrial, for an appeal based on the notion that this judge sucks. But keep in mind that they were legal experts on. Chuck Rosenberg was on Rachel Maddow last night. Again, Rachel Maddow doing some of the best work she's ever done. Doing some of the best work journalists have ever done. And if you're listening to this on Friday morning, as soon as it goes out, Friday night, tonight, Maddow has John Brennan, and Ari Melber's filling in with the last word, and he's got Stephen K. Bannon. Why? We're gonna find out. Big night. The 9 o'clock, the 8, 9, and 10 o'clock hours of MSNBC are a powerhouse. But I do agree that they shouldn't be having Judge Kavanaugh confirmation commercials. I saw a tweet earlier this week, so I agree with that. Shouldn't have any political commercials. They are the place for politics on the... Alright. So guys, we're waiting. That's all we're doing, is waiting for this Paul Manafort thing to settle up. We're waiting for the jury to come back. Right now it is 9:15 as of press time. Again, this is going to go out as soon as it can, probably within an hour. I don't know why it takes so long for me to turn this thing into a video, but it does. But hopefully on Monday's edition of the Jay Porks podcast, we don't have to talk about waiting on a Manafort verdict anymore. Hopefully we have the verdict and we get to move on to other things. This again, like I was saying before I cut myself off. Chuck Rosenberg, former federal prosecutor for the Southern District of New York, he said, you know, juries all the time ask about reasonable doubt. They always do that. He said, so I wouldn't read too much into it. And these 4 questions that they ask, like, people are reading into the tea leaves, as they say. You know what I'm saying? It's too much. Just, there's 18 counts. They could have been asking about 1 count. It could have been. So let's just back up a second. Patriots. And I don't want to hear the notion. Don't tell me on Twitter. Don't reply to any of my tweets. First of all, anybody that mentions Hillary Clinton replying to my tweets, you're blocked. You're just blocked. It's like Dikembe Mutombo's hanging out on my Twitter profile, you know? Blocked. And folks, I don't understand why. Give you a little behind the curtain here. So, like, I got my background music playing through YouTube, and this video never has an ad, and now all of a sudden it's got ads every time it plays. So I keep having to pause the music, so I'm sorry about that. This jury needs to get it together. Now listen, here's what I'm hoping. I said at the beginning of the podcast that I hope that, you know, I'd try to do these in the morning now and get them out as quickly as possible because I don't want to be usurped by the news cycle. Well, I'm hoping that all this worrying on this podcast is usurped by a guilty verdict. And I don't want people replying to me saying, Jay, don't worry, he's got a second trial coming. No. No. He's got a second trial coming and he'll be looking for a pardon right there. Okay. Anyhow, Monday, we have a big episode of the Jay Porks podcast. We're hoping not to focus too much on crazy Judge Ellis. and his dinner plans. We're going to talk about what could be a story, what could possibly not be a story. George Papadopoulos' wife tweeted that he's looking for a new lawyer and he may want to get out of his plea agreement. Spoiler, I don't know if that's a thing. I don't know if you can plead guilty to lying to the FBI and then say, I want to get out of that because there's evidence that clears me. So there's evidence that said you didn't lie to the FBI and you just discovered it now? A little weird, a little strange. Also, all quiet on the Cohen front. Michael Cohen's very silent. Why? Probably good reasons for patriots. The more quiet he gets, the more patriotic he's getting. And, all those Omarosa tapes, all those Omarosa interviews, yeah, we ain't talking about that on the J Parks podcast. Wanna know why? Because I am of the belief that Omarosa, I'm not calling it a false flag. Omarosa was sent out by Trump with these tapes. At a certain point, her job, she's like a sleeper agent. You know what I'm saying? Her job was to get out there and distract when the time comes. And she is doing that now. Paul Manafort's defense brings no witnesses. They bring no witnesses. All of a sudden, Omarosa's out with tapes. I ain't buying it. She's known Trump for 15 years. No chance. And even if she's being honest, that is not something that is going to take up time in my mind on the J Parks podcast. Or on Dyze in Your House, or anywhere on Least Coast Radio, for the least heard voices. Monday, we're talking about Georgie Papp. We're talking about the latest Mueller inquiries. Wagons circling around Roger Stone. We're also going to talk about the fallout from that Steve Bannon interview with Ari Melber on The Last Word. We're also going to talk about the enemies list. The, John Brennan getting his security clearance taken away, and a former naval admiral begging for Trump to do the same. J Parks. Dyze in your house.
Representing Staten Island.
Hey yo, J Parks here, back to recording my own commercials. And here's the deal. You may have heard me complaining on today's podcast or a previous podcast about suffering through a summer of unemployment. Well, we have a fix for that, and it is called Patreon. That's right. Least Coast Radio now has a Patreon page, and all you need to do is go to patreon.com/jparks, and there are 3 tiers that you can subscribe to, 3 tiers you can join to become a member of Least Coast Radio, of the Least Coast Radio community, of Porks Nation. You'll even have a chance to pick the name and all that stuff. And we are not offering just thank yous and shout outs. We got bonus content. There is even a tier where you are able to talk to me on the phone every week. And we will go over what is happening in our country. And you could personally talk to me, J Pork. Personal interactions. There's a tier where there's a group. You can join a group, and you could affect where the podcast goes that week. I need a community. I need help. Not necessarily money, but I need people to be helping me out. So therefore, that's why I created a Least Coast Radio Patreon. Not to be confused with a GoFundMe or a Kickstarter. This is not me with my hand out. I have bonus content. Bonus content to offer you. I have tons of it. I have tons of time, and I want to give it to you. All you need to do is join us on Patreon. Become a Patreon. Patreon.com/jporks. Look for the Least Coast Radio Patreon page. You'll see me. You'll see me with a microphone and Dyze in my house. Dyze in your house next to the name. You'll see that. So just go Hit us on Patreon. You will get a thank you. I will know that, and you will get on. You will have a lot to do with what goes down on the J Porks podcast and everything concerned with Least Coast Radio. It's going to be a big year for us. 2018. Let's get it done.